Hi, fourth grade. You need your week 7 California Indians in the Desert Social Studies Weekly. Okay, so California Studies Weekly. So you need your magazine. We're going to read through it together, and then you are going to answer. Then you are going to answer a few questions on a Google form, and you're going to complete an activity. Okay. There's only one social studies assignment that is due on Friday. So this is not going to be a part 1 and part 2. There's only one part. So we're just going to do it all together. So go ahead and grab it. We're going to read it together. California Desert Indians. California's deserts are some of the hottest and driest places on Earth. The Mojave and the Colorado deserts only get 2 to 10 inches of rain each year. Some places do not even get that much. 2 inches is about here, and then 10 inches is about here. So that's how much rain they get in the entire year. That's nothing. That's no rain at all. That's why they're called the deserts. The temperature in these deserts can reach as high as 130 degrees in the summer. 130 degrees in the summer. Oh, so hot. And drop to below freezing during a winter night. A place in Death Valley is called Furnace Creek. Once got up to 134 degrees. That's one of the hottest temperatures on Earth ever recorded. You might think that no one could possibly live in such a harsh climate, but you would be wrong. Several groups of American Indians have made their homes there for thousands of years. Many still live there today. How did they do it? Let's find out. Desert Indians had to settle near water to survive. They built homes near springs, streams, lakes, or rivers. So if you did not know what the word streams meant and you read that sentence, they built homes near springs, streams, lakes, or rivers. Just by putting all of those other words together, you know it's a body of water, because lakes and rivers, I'm sure you know what those two words mean. They're bodies of water. So you can assume and infer and put together springs and streams are bodies of water too. So they built homes near springs, streams, lakes, or rivers. So those are all different types of bodies of water. They were strong people who found ways to grow even though they lived under very difficult conditions. Two of these groups were the Mojave and the Cahuilla. I always say that wrong. I apologize. The Mojave found the water they needed by living near the Colorado River. Every spring, the river would flood the surrounding area. The flood would also slit for farming. Slit in the sand, clay, and minerals that are carried by running water. So that just told us what slit is, right? Slit is the sand, clay, and minerals that are carried by running water. So that's nice. That's great to know. The Mojave dug ditches to guide river water to their farms. They grew corn, pumpkins, and beans. Farming wasn't the only source of food for these people. Hunters and fishers brought in food from the river in nearby areas. They gathered desert plants that were great for food as well. The Cahuilla Indians lived in a desert in the south central part of our state. So south and central, so the southern part and the center of California. They did not have a large river nearby, so they got their water from small lakes. Many of these water sources dried up during the summer. The Cahuilla had to know where to find water after the hot weather started. Thankfully, there were enough springs and wells to keep everyone happy. The small amount of water meant that they could not grow much food. The Cahuilla spent a lot of time hunting deer and rabbits. They also gathered wild desert plants to eat. These plants were useful for making food, shelter, and clothing. This week, we'll learn more about both of these groups of California Desert Indians. Go to the bottom where it says connections. Stone tools help archaeologists learn about early people. How do we learn about ancient people in the Americas? There is no time machine we can use to go back and see how they lived. Instead, we learn about how people lived in the past through clues left in the present. Sometimes ancient people left clues about how they saw the world in stories passed down to their descendants. Descendants are people that come after you. They also left behind creations we still use. For example, corn only exists because of ancient American people who bred grasses into a new crop. We can also learn about ancient people through objects they made. Scientists called archaeologists search for ancient objects, buildings, or even garbage heaps to learn about how the people lived in the past. Remember in our Scholastic News when we were talking about the buried treasure that the archaeologists found? We had to look up the vocabulary word relics, and we talked about that. Relics are things left behind from people in the past. That's the same exact thing that we're talking about. Archaeologists study these objects and relics, and they learn about the people of the past. Unfortunately, I'm in the middle of where we were reading right here. I'm right here. Unfortunately, many of the clues disappear over time. Weather often wearies away wood, tools, and buildings. Food decomposes, clothing usually falls apart. Because stone wears away more slowly, stone clues are easier to find. Studying stone tools has helped archaeologists create theories about ancient Americans. Tools over 15,000 years old have been found in North and South America. These tools show people how people have lived in both continents since before the first cities in the world began. They missed out a word. Sorry, I had to stumble. They forgot a word in there. While there are still many questions about how they lived, the careful craftsmanship on their tools shows that ancient Americans used their ingenuity to survive. These early peoples prepared the way for hundreds of nations that developed later all across the Americas. So go ahead and open it up. We're going to learn about the Mojave and the Kiowa Indians more. So take a look at the paintings, the pictures. Right here, take a look at the captions, the pictures. This is a video, so pause it at any time, re-listen to it, re-watch it, whatever helps you learn best. Mojave. The Mojave Indians lived along the Colorado River and in the Mojave Valley. For thousands of years, the Mojave took advantage of the flooding Colorado River. As the river went down, rich slit was left behind where crops and trees could grow. Remember, the slit is the clay, the sand, and the minerals that the running water would leave behind. So it's in a running water, and then the water would flood, and then it would go down, and then that slit would be left over, so that made the ground more fertile to be able to plant and grow crops. They also figured out a way to irrigate their crops. This means that they brought the water from one place to another where it was needed. Using this irrigation system, they planted squash, corn, beans, and pumpkins. They also did ceremonial rain dances, which they believed would bring rain. The Mojave Indians were artistic people. They used blue ink from cactus plants to tattoo their faces with lines, dots, and patterns. They made beautiful beaded collars, which they sometimes traded for other goods. Skilled potters made bowls and dishes out of clay. They even made pottery dolls to give to their children. These dolls were dressed in clothes and had real human hair. The Mojave hunted, gathered wild plants, and fished. They had no settled villages in the Mojave Desert, but family was the main unit of society. They hunted bighorn sheep and deer, used cactus plants for seeds and fruit, and usually lived in peace. They built summer houses next to the river so they could fish. These houses were simple wooden poles covered with grass and raised on stilts to keep them from getting flooded when the river rose. For the winter months, they built stronger homes away from the river. These were usually made of clay to help them stay warm. The Mojave Indians were very loyal to each other in times of war and were great fighters. The Mojave Indians were also very spiritual, religious people. They believed in life after death, and often buried their loved ones with valuable gifts. Now we're going to learn about the Cholula. The Cholula lived in the rugged canyons and deserts south of the San Bernardino Mountains and Mojave Desert. In most areas, water was scarce, and the Cholula dug wells and planted crops nearby, or they dug trenches to run water into farmlands. They loved acorns and mesquite, but these only grew in well-watered areas, places. They hunted animals and gathered plants for food. Some groups probably planted crops. One type of Cholula home was called quiche. These were round shelters made of grass and branches on a wooden frame. On each quiche was an opening in the front and a hole on the top for the smoke from fires. The Cholula were masters at making baskets and pottery, and they learned to make the most of desert plants for food. They used mesquite wood, bark, and leaves to make houses, and they ate mesquite seeds and flowers. The seed pods could also be ground into flour. Sunflower, pine, and chia seeds were another source of food. There was a major trade route that crossed the desert where the Cholula Indians lived. This meant that American Indians from the east and the west often traveled with the Cholula. Kahula. Sorry, I don't know why I keep messing that word up. I apologize. Some seashells and dried fish from the coast were important items. The shells were used as money. They also traded with tribes living along the Colorado River. They handed their handmade baskets and pottery for food and other goods. Although desert life was challenging, these tribes survived. Legends and customs have been passed down through many generations. Mojave and the Cholula people still live in California and honor the ways of their ancestors. Okay? Wonderful. The Mojave Desert. I'm in the bottom right. California regions. The Mojave Desert is one of the 4 major deserts in North America, and much of it lives in the southern part of our state. It has 25,000 square miles of sparse vegetation with 2 to 6 inches of rain a year and temperatures of 130 degrees in the summer and below freezing in the winter. Only certain kinds of plants can survive in this place. Of the 200 species of plant life, the most prominent are the Joshua trees, the creosote bushes, the burrowweed, the wildflowers, and the occasional cactus. The animals include bighorn sheep and coyote, snakes, lizards, bats, red-tailed hawks, and desert tortoise do well here too. If you visit the Mojave, keep your eyes open for lots of ants and crawly tarantula, a spider, and the tarantula wasp. Burrows can be found here, but they were not natural inhabitants. Visitors to the area have given fitting names to many Mojave Desert locations: Death Valley, Devil's Playground, Lava Beds, Soda Springs, Rock Springs, and Old Dad Mountains, just to name a few. If you plan a visit, bring lots of water and your camera. How often does lightning hit the earth? Lightning hits the earth about 100 times a second, or more than 10 million times a day. This number changes according to weather and location, but on average, it's 10 million hits every 24 hours. These brilliant charges of electrons can reach up to 20 million volts each day. They flash inside a highly charged cloud or between a cloud and the ground. Wow. We're going to learn about chia seeds. Have you ever seen pottery figures that have green hair? These little figures are usually in the shape of famous people, TV or movie characters, or animals. They are covered with chia seeds. When the seeds sprout, the leaves look like hair. Many people enjoy watching the hair grow. Did you know that chia seeds were actually an important food for the Cholula Indians? The Chia plant is a member of the salvia plant family. They grow in the deserts of California, Utah, Nevada, Arizona, and Mexico. The plant grows to be between 6 and 18 inches tall and has small purple and blue flowers. When these flowers dry up, they fall off and leave a stem that is full of small, healthy seeds. The Kalua Indians had a lot of uses for chia seeds. Seeds that were toasted could be ground into flour to make bread or pancakes. They could also be mixed with water to make a healthy drink. Some Cahuilla Indians believed that water mixed with a spoonful of chia seeds could keep a person full of energy for an entire day. The seeds were also used to treat fevers and make uh, poises. A poise is a pasta like substance that helps treat cuts and injuries. Chia seeds are high in fiber, calcium, and iron. That makes them popular with people today who try to eat healthy. People can add them to smoothies and yogurt, mix them into salads and soups, or bake them into breads. Have you ever eaten chia seeds? They're great for more than growing hair on a ceramic pet. Climbing the mountain, a Cahuilla legend. An old Cahuilla chief called the young boys of his tribe together. He told them the time had come for them to climb a high mountain. Each boy was to climb on his own as far as he could go. When he could go no further, he was to break off a twig from the nearest plant and return back to the chief. The boys hardly slept that night, and when the sun arose, each headed off on his journey. It wasn't long before the first boy returned, tired and panting. He gave the chief a piece of beaver tail cactus. The chief said, "Not only did you not climb the mountain, but you didn't even make it across the desert. Better luck next year, my son." An hour went by, and the next young warrior returned. He had a small stem of a sagebrush. The chief took the plant and said, "You have only made it to the base of the mountain. Try again next year." Next came a boy carrying a twig from a cottonwood tree. He had made it as far as the spring. Another returned with a piece of buckthorn. He had reached the first rock slide. The next had a leaf of incense cedar, and the next some needles from the ponderosa pine. The chief knew that each boy had climbed higher than the last. Finally, it began to get dark. The old chief was worried. What had happened to the last climber? At last, the boy returned, but he had nothing in his hands. The young man said, "Chief, I have climbed to the top of the mountain, but I have nothing to give you. There is no living thing at the top, but I have seen the sun setting over the ocean, and I have looked as far as the eye can see." The old chief looked at the boy and said, "You need no twigs to prove that you finished the climb, for it shows in your face. You have made the journey to manhood, and your spirit has been uplifted." So that is a Cahuilla legend. That is a story that they pass down from time after time. Okay, so you're going to turn to the back page. You are going to go to describe the tribe is what you're doing. So you have the Mojave and the Cahuilla, all right? So with that, use the boxes below to fill in information about the two California Indian tribes we studied. So you're going to write about the type of houses both of these tribes had, the farming that they both did, the food that they had, and the trade that they did, okay? So what did they trade? How did they trade? What kind of houses did they live in? Describe them. Don't just say a house. You have to describe what the house was. Farming, what did they use? What were their crops? And then what type of food did they eat? And then what they traded. So you're going to fill in those blanks. Please push hard enough on the magazine so I'm able to actually read it. When you take your picture, you're going to hold it up so I just see the picture of what you've written down so I can easily navigate what you wrote and it's not difficult for me. Please don't make it blurry and really just hold it up so I can see. That'd be great. You're going to fill in these boxes. You're going to take a picture of it. And that is it for your assignment for this week. So you're going to watch this video, and somewhere on this activity, the secret word is Minnie Mouse. So don't tell anyone the other secret word. Wherever you put the secret word, whether it's in a private comment, whether it's on the activity itself, somewhere on the piece of paper, as long as you put the secret code, the secret word, put it there, you will get extra credit points, okay? Point, I should say. All right, so I hope this video helped. Please let me know if you have any questions. You may stop, reread, listen to the video, and listen to it while you're doing your fill in the blanks, whatever works best for you. You have to know how you learn best, okay? All right, guys, talk to you later.